Before we get into today's story, I want you to think about something for a moment. What does loyalty mean to you? Is it standing by your family no matter what they do? Or is it standing up for what's right, even if it means going against your own child? This father faced that exact choice. His son made terrible decisions, abandoned his wife and children, got engaged to another woman barely a month later, then expected his father to celebrate at his wedding. But this father refused, and what he did instead shocked his entire family. Let me tell you this story from the very beginning. This father's son was young and ambitious. After graduating high school, he moved 3 states away for college, starting fresh, building his future. At just 19 years old, he met a girl and decided to get married. His father tried to talk him out of it, tried to convince him to wait. He personally felt his son was too immature for marriage, too young to understand what commitment really meant. But his son didn't listen. Young love, you know. He thought he knew better. They got married anyway. Then both of them dropped out of college and moved back to his hometown, back to where they started. At 20 years old, barely a year into their marriage, they had their first child. Ah, beautiful little girl. His father and mother were thrilled to become grandparents. They welcomed their daughter-in-law into the family with open arms. 16 months later, their daughter-in-law gave birth again, this time to a little boy. So now, at just 21 years old, their son had 2 children, 2 babies, and a wife who was struggling. After the first baby was born, the father and his wife started noticing something. Their daughter-in-law wasn't happy. She seemed stressed, overwhelmed, exhausted. They both thought it might be postpartum depression, something that would pass with time and support. But it wasn't just postpartum depression. There were deeper problems in the marriage. Problems that became impossible to ignore after the second child arrived. Just after their grandson was born, their son and his wife separated. Not divorced yet, just separated, living apart, trying to figure things out. She would still bring the kids over to visit their grandparents, and it was during these visits that she began opening up, unloading all the pain and frustration she'd been holding inside. She told them things about their son that were hard to hear. The father knows there are always 2 sides to every story. He's not naive. But considering he knows his son, considering he raised him and knows his character, he believed her. He could see the truth in what she was saying. So he did what any good father would do. He sat his son down, not once, not twice, but numerous times. He tried to talk to him about his marriage, about his responsibilities as a husband and father, about the mistakes he was making. But his son refused to take responsibility for anything, blamed his wife for everything. Everything that went wrong was her fault, according to him. Even when his father directly pointed out situations where his son was clearly the sole problem, his son refused to see it. Refused to admit any wrongdoing. This frustrated the father immensely. He could see his son destroying his own family, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Eventually, they decided to try counseling, professional help to save the marriage. For about a year, things seemed okay on the surface. They were working on their issues, trying to rebuild, trying to make it work for the sake of their children. But underneath, the problems were still there, festering, growing worse. Finally, their daughter-in-law had had enough. She filed for divorce, made the difficult decision to end the marriage officially. And what did their son do? 3 days later, just 3 days after his wife filed for divorce, he was on Facebook announcing his new girlfriend. Think about that timing. His marriage wasn't even over yet. The ink on the divorce papers wasn't even dry, and he was already publicly announcing a new relationship. But it gets worse. A month later, just 1 month after announcing this new girlfriend, they were engaged. Engaged to be married. His divorce wasn't finalized. His wife was still legally his wife. His children were still processing their parents' separation, and he was already planning his next wedding. The father couldn't believe what he was seeing. This wasn't the son he raised. Or maybe it was. Maybe he just hadn't seen it before. Now let's talk about the situation his son had left his wife in, because this is important. Their son had forced his wife to become a permanent stay-at-home mom. From the moment their first child was born, he insisted she quit any job or career aspirations. Stay home with the kids. Be a full-time mother. Now there's nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home parent, but the problem was that she had no choice in the matter. And when the marriage fell apart, she was left with nothing. No recent work experience, no career to fall back on, no income of her own. And here's the worst part. She had no other family or friends in the area. Remember, they had moved to his hometown. Her family was far away. She knew no one aside from her in-laws. She was completely isolated, alone, with 2 small children to care for, and nowhere to go. So what did the father and his wife do? They helped her, secretly. Unbeknownst to their son, they helped their daughter-in-law financially. They got her an apartment, made sure she and the grandchildren had a safe place to live, made sure they wouldn't end up homeless or desperate, because that's what family does. Real family doesn't abandon people just because a marriage ends. Real family supports the people who need it most, especially when those people are the mothers of your grandchildren. Before the divorce was even finalized, before everything was legally settled, they received something in the mail. A wedding invitation. Their son was getting married again, to his new girlfriend. The woman he'd been dating for barely 2 months. He was inviting them to celebrate this new marriage, as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't just destroyed his first family. The father looked at that invitation and made a decision. He told his son clearly and directly he would not be attending this wedding, and they would not have his blessing. His mother, however, had a different opinion. She told their son she would make sure his father attended. She would convince him, change his mind, make him come around. But the father stayed consistent in his decision. He was not going to that wedding. He also made another request of his son. He asked him not to bring his new fiancée around their house, out of respect for the mother of his children, out of respect for the woman who was still legally his wife, out of respect for basic human decency. Whether his son honored that request, we don't know, but the father made his position clear. The wedding was scheduled for February 11th. As the date approached, the pressure mounted. His wife kept trying to convince him to attend, to just go and support their son, to keep the peace in the family. The night before the wedding, February 10th, she gave him one final push, one last attempt to change his mind, but he held firm. He was not going. Their daughter, their son's sister, also refused to attend, for the exact same reasons. She saw what her brother had done. She saw how he'd treated his wife and children, and she wanted no part in celebrating it. So on the day of the wedding, the family split. His wife picked up their grandchildren, got them dressed in their little wedding outfits, and took them to their father's wedding. She attended. She was there. But the father and their daughter made a different choice. They decided to spend the evening with his son's ex-wife. Think about what that woman was going through in that moment. Her children, her 2 babies, were at their father's wedding, watching him marry another woman, while she sat alone, wondering how her life had fallen apart so completely. Wondering how she'd gone from being a wife and mother in a family to being alone with no support system. The father couldn't imagine her sitting alone that night. Couldn't bear the thought of her crying by herself while her kids were at that wedding. So he and his daughter went to her. She was completely taken aback that he didn't end up attending the wedding. She probably expected everyone to choose his son, to support him no matter what, to leave her behind. But they didn't. They chose her. They took her out. Dinner maybe. Conversazione. Distraction. Anything to get her mind off what was happening. The father just wanted her to know one thing. She would always be considered family to them. Always. No matter what happened between her and their son, she was still family. His daughter even made a joke to lighten the mood. She told her they could drop the in-law status now. Just be sisters. No more formality, just family. The ex-daughter-in-law was tearfully grateful, overwhelmed by their support. And in that moment, the father realized something important. He realized just how badly she needed them, just how much their support meant to her, especially on that specific night. Tonight, her ex-husband married someone else. The night her children attended a wedding celebrating her replacement. She needed to know she wasn't alone, and they made sure she knew. The next morning came. The wedding was over. His son was married, and the phone rang. It was his son calling. Not to say thank you for the support over the years, not to share happiness from his wedding day. No, he called to tell his father what a horrible father he was. How could he not attend his own son's wedding? How could he be so cruel? So unsupportive? The father listened, said what he needed to say. The conversation ended. A few days later, word got back to his son. Someone told him what his father had done, that his father didn't just skip the wedding. No, he spent the evening with his ex-wife, the woman his son had left behind. When his son found out, he was furious. Absolutely furious. He called his father again, and this time he was even angrier. He said that spending the evening with his ex was the ultimate form of betrayal, the worst thing his father could have possibly done. And furthermore, both his father and his sister would now have to earn a relationship with him. On his terms only, they were essentially cut off, punished, for choosing loyalty over blind family support. The father took to Reddit. He posted his story, asked if he was wrong. He sent the link to his daughter so she could read the comments. The next morning, he was at work when he got a text from her. "Dad, you went viral." The post exploded. Thousands of comments. Awards. People sharing it everywhere. And of course, his son saw it. His son saw the post. Read all the comments. Saw thousands of strangers calling him out for his behavior. He took screenshots, sent them to his mother, and told her something chilling. "He's dead to me now." His father, dead to him. Over this, time will tell if he really means it. The father suspects that the second his son needs another cash loan, suddenly he won't be dead anymore. Suddenly he'll be willing to talk again. His wife, the grandmother, told their son something important, something he needed to hear. "Your children have to be our #1 priority. They're not just some disposable items you can leave behind when one chapter of your life closes. Maybe one day you'll understand this. Maybe one day he will. Maybe one day when his children are grown and he sees how his choices affected them, he'll understand. But that day isn't today. So let me ask you this. What would you have done if you were this father? Would you have gone to the wedding? Kept the peace? Maintained your relationship with your son at all costs? Or would you have done what he did? Stood by the mother of your grandchildren, shown loyalty to the woman who had been abandoned and left with nothing, made sure she knew she wasn't alone? This father made his choice, and it cost him his relationship with his son, at least for now. But he has no regrets. Because deep down, he knows he did the right thing. His son abandoned his wife, left her with 2 small children, no family, no friends, no support system, no job, no income, nothing. Then got engaged to another woman 1 month later, and expected everyone to just celebrate with him, to pretend everything was fine, to act like he hadn't just destroyed a family. This father said no. He refused to play along. He refused to validate his son's terrible choices. He refused to pretend that this was okay. And on the night of the wedding, while his son was celebrating his new marriage, this father sat with the woman his son had thrown away, the mother of his grandchildren, the woman who had no one else in that moment. He made sure she knew she wasn't alone, that she was still family, that they would always be there for her. His son called it betrayal, the ultimate betrayal. But was it really, or was it loyalty? Loyalty to doing what's right. Loyalty to supporting someone who desperately needed it. Loyalty to his grandchildren by supporting their mother. His son may never forgive him. They may never have the relationship they once had. But this father can look at himself in the mirror. He can sleep at night, because he knows with absolute certainty that he made the right choice, even if it was the hard choice. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. You want to know what you think. Was this father right to skip the wedding? Should he have attended to keep peace with his son? Or did he do exactly what needed to be done? I genuinely read every single comment. Your perspectives matter. And if you've ever had to make a hard choice like this, if you've ever had to choose between what's easy and what's right, if you've ever had to stand up for someone when everyone else walked away, then hit that subscribe button right now. Because every single day I bring you real stories from real people. Stories that make you think deeply. Stories that make you feel something. Stories that remind you that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always worth it in the end. Subscribe to Unfiltered Chronicles. Turn on your notifications so you never miss a story. New story dropping tomorrow. And trust me, you absolutely will not want to miss it. See you then.